5 days ago, 35-year-old radio broadcaster Richard Najid was shot dead by a still unidentified suspect in Tawi-Tawi. The incident happened a day after the observance of World Press Freedom Day. This was the most recent recorded media killing in the country. He was the 27th journalist in the country killed under the watch of President Benigno Aquino III. Still fresh in our minds was the gloomy day of November 23, 2009, when a mass grave was discovered in Mindanao amid heated political rivalry. 22 out of 58 bodies recovered were journalists. Dubbed as the Ampatuan or Maguindanao Massacre, this is the single deadliest event for journalists in history. For 4 consecutive years, at least 2 foreign media watchdogs noted that the Philippines is the 3rd most deadly country for journalists after war-torn countries of Syria and Iraq. This is ironic to the Philippines' image of upholding democracy and freedom which other countries try to follow. The so-called impunity aggravates the plight of journalists being killed in the line of duty. Courts are slow and justice remains elusive. Even during the visit of U.S. President Obama in the Philippines, a foreign journalist from Fox News asked President Aquino,
why 26 journalists have been killed since you took office, and I understand that there have only been suspects arrested in 6 of those cases. What are you doing to fix that?
We did set up an interagency committee to look on extralegal killings, enforced disappearances, torture, and other grave violations of right to life, liberty, and security of persons.
But with 27 recorded media killings since 2010 and police having arrested suspects in only 6 cases and secured convictions in only 2 cases, it looks like that the government has a lot of work to be done in order to convince the people that the safety of its people remains paramount. Welcome to Opposing Views, a hard, straightforward discussion of today's most pressing issues. Journalism has long been a high-risk profession in the Philippines, not only because of the dangerous places media practitioners cover, but because some believe that killing the messenger is the best way to suppress the message. The Philippines has a reputation for having one of the freest media freedom environments in Asia, but this seems to fleet inch by inch with every dead journalist added to the statistics. So tonight we ask, is the government fulfilling its mandate of protecting journalists? Good evening, I'm Rod Nepomuceno, and this is Opposing Views. Joining us tonight in our discussion is Colonel Henry Libay from the Philippine National Police Directorate for Investigation and Detective Management. He also heads Task Force USIG. Good evening, Colonel. Colonel Libay.
Good evening, Attorney Rod.
Yeah, can you give us a summary of your position regarding this question? Is the government providing enough protection for our journalists?
Yes, actually, yes. The government is doing everything in order to solve all of these cases of Islam media practitioner that is happening in our country today.
All right. And on the opposing side is Mr. Ed Lingao, a veteran journalist and multimedia director of the Philippine Center for Investigative Journalism. Good evening, Ed.
Good evening, Attorney.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right. What is your position on this, Ed? Is the government providing enough protection?
Well, the simple answer to that is no. But to put a bit of nuancing, we're not asking for protection. We're just asking for the implementation of the law. We are asking for enforcement, arrests, convictions.
All right. So let's start off. Now, Ed, I'll start off with you. U.S.-based watchdog, Human Rights Watch, described the state of media freedom in the Philippines as precarious and something not safe, not strong, and steady. Do you agree?
Yes. We have the freest, we're one of the most free in terms of press freedom, but unfortunately, we're also the freest in terms of it's free to kill reporters. So that's the paradox of the entire situation. We can say a lot of things, but we can get shot and nobody gets hauled out to jail. If you look at the statistics now, we've never had a conviction of any mastermind. We're looking at masterminds. not gunmen, not accomplices or people who are on the lookout, but really masterminds, because that would, we think, put a stop or have a major impact.
And do you see the trend worsening as the years go on?
Well, we try to look at the statistics from the time of President Aquino, the first Aquino, FBR, and so on down the line. In the first 40 months, for example, of President Benigno Aquino's administration, we've had 24. We listed 24 work-related murders. That's double the number of work-related murders in the first 40 months of President Arroyo. So it's significant.
So that's a significant
That's
increase.
significant. It's quite
double,
It's
yeah.
double. It's double. Of course, if you look at in total the statistics, the time of President Arroyo, which was 9 years, that's pretty long.
Yeah.
Medyo malalayo pa yun. And of course, you're also looking at the Ampatuan massacre, which where you had 32 reporters who were killed.
Yeah, in one go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
one event.
Yeah. So we had to partition a bit the statistics to look at them on separate time frames.
Okay. Do you agree, Colonel, on the assessment of that U.S. watchdog? Na parang it's the media freedom in the Philippines is precarious, not steady, not strong. What can you say about that?
Well, of course, if we're going to compare the statistics, it would be there's really quite some discrepancy as far as the number is concerned.
So there really, admittedly, there is a lot more happening.
No, I mean to say they were talking about 24 work-related cases under the present administration, but yeah, we know we have 27 cases right now, but it's only around 11 cases can be considered as work-related, and 16 of those cases are
You're saying
can be considered as non-work-related.
Non-working, meaning nagkataon lang that they're media practitioners.
Which means the motive, the reason why they were killed is not related to their job as media practitioner, but it can be attributed to some other motive, like personal motive, love triangle, land dispute, and robbery and so forth.
So you're saying it was just a coincidence that they were media practitioners,
yes.
so it wasn't work-related.
That's right. That's right.
Now,
I think the differences. I think the differences are sort of the differences in definitions. Task Force Husig has its own definition of when is a reporter killed in the line of duty, or and we tend to look at these killings from a very liberal point of view. So long as there is,
point of view.
So long as there is no, the first thing that the media groups look at is, does there seem to be any other motive for the killing of this reporter? And if there is no clear motive, no other clear motive for the killing of the reporter aside from his job, then we tend to lump them as a media-related murder already. In other words, if it's not clear that it was, love triangle.
So if it's vague, then
we assume, and we think that it's a safe assumption that it may be related to his work, and then there's also consultation with the colleagues. I think as far as Task Force Husig is concerned, they tend to be a bit more conservative in the way they define. For example, I think the Ampatuan massacre victims are not listed as. I think they're listed as collateral damage victims.
It's not considered. Is that true, Colonel?
No,
you don't consider those as media killings?
No, actually, we know that these media practitioners were working during the time that they were killed.
So it was in the line of duty.
It's a work-related cases. It's just separated from the statistic counted as a one incident for the very reason that because of it was handled by the National Investigation Task Force, and the magnitude as far as the number of suspects and the number of persons killed. Yeah, because in most of the, for example, on the 48 cases we have on work-related cases, most of them are one victim and one suspect. Now, on the case of the Maguindanao massacre, we have a lot of victims and we have a lot of accused. So, in order just not to mingle out the figures, since it was handled by a...
In other words, that's an extraordinary situation, an extraordinary event, and you wouldn't count that as media killings.
It's media killing. So, if we have it on our statistic, that would be from 48 plus 1, so it would be 49 cases, or because we're counting as far as the number of incidents is concerned. But
that's one.
Yeah,
that's considered
as far as the number of incidents is concerned.
Victim.
Yeah.
Okay.
And no, the number of victims is of course a different figure, which we also put in our report.
Now, Colonel, may I ask? in your mind, is protecting journalists a priority of the Aquino administration?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, of course. In fact, the president issued this administrative order number 35 in 2012, which calls for the creation of the interagency committee against torture, extrajudicial killing, enforced disappearance, and other grave human rights violations. So, this interagency committee, which composed of different government agencies, is also patterned to the way we handle this trafficking in person cases, where there is also an interagency committee. This AO 35 pull all these different agencies. We have the DOJ, we have the PNP, the NBI, and other government agencies to look into these particular cases. So
and is this a regular thing? Agency coordination, is this a one-off, or is it a continuous coordination of all these agencies?
Yeah, not only on coordination, but the interagency committee is also creating the so-called special investigation teams.
Okay.
These are headed by the designated AO 35 prosecutors, the NBI, the PNP, and other government agencies that may be called upon to look on these particular cases. What the good thing about this new setup is, under this particular setup, the leader or the head of this investigation team are the prosecutor who are now part of the capacity build-up in the investigation of cases, not the ordinary cases where the prosecutor just determines the probable cause. This time they are the ones who lead, and they are the head of the investigation team, and they go side by side with the police and the NBI to conduct investigation. So this is the new setup.
Yeah. So Ed, are you familiar with this interagency coordination?
Yes,
and if so, are you
actually?
supporting?
I've talked already with the Colonel about this. And to be fair to Task Force USIG, they've had significant advances in the way investigations being done. We've looked at how they've improved and modernized a lot of the investigation procedures. When I started out as a reporter, I was a police reporter 24, 26 years ago.
Don't age yourself.
Well, you've been around. People would just go in and out of the crime scene, and now there's more order, and there's ballistics, there's fingerprinting, and that we appreciate. However, I need to also bring this to a boots on the ground level. When you go to the provincial level, to the local police, they still have the most basic problems. They would have 4 investigators handling everything from traffic violations to away na mag-asawa na dapat nasa barangay, to murder, to media murders, to rape. So
halo-halo.
overpowering. So you would have a lot of issues there na dikit-dikit eh. Even though you have Task Force USIG, and there have been improvements nga along the line, it will take a lot of time for it
it's
to
more
trickle
Metro
down.
Manila. It's more, you're saying, is it more, this Task Force USIG is more city-centered rather than...
It can be felt more strongly here in Metro Manila than in the provinces. For example, Cabanatuan is a highly urbanized city. Yet when we talk to people there, the investigators there, regarding a Task Force USIG case of a media murder, he wasn't very familiar with the case, even though he was handling that case as a Task Force USIG case, which makes it one of the priorities. He didn't know how many shots were fired. He didn't know if the slugs were recovered, and he was the investigator assigned to the case. And I really can't blame him that much then, because in the end, these guys they work 24 hours.
It's just a bandwidth, because they can't physically.
And I don't mean 24 hours a day.
Right,
I mean 24-hour shifts.
Shifts.
So from 8 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock in the morning the next day.
Yeah, they're on it.
Yeah,
and they're on
by after 12 hours, how will you be able to think
Right,
clearly?
right. Now let's go, Colonel. Let's go back again to my question earlier. Now, President Aquino said that there are other issues why journalists are killed and not really in the line of duty. You mentioned that. Does this mean we have let's say bloated or maybe vague statistics, not bloated but vague statistics? So how does that work?
Actually, yung sinasabi nga that was mentioned by Ed, it could be some kind of a different perspective and definition. But actually, as far as the PNP concerned, if we were going to read Section 24C of the Republic Act 6975, which is the PNP law, the PNP is the primary law enforcement agency. And one of our primary function is to investigate all crimes. And this includes all killing and cases of
media or not.
Yes.
Media or
Media
not.
not, yes,
I mean,
yes.
it's settled there. So, yung sinasabi ni Ed na yung kakulangan natin ng something like manpower to do on the investigation. That's why the chief PNP, when he assumed as the chief PNP, the first directive that we got is to really focus on strengthening the investigation. At in these different cases of killings of media practitioner, nagpo-form kami ng tinatawag na, we form this so-called Special Investigation Task Group at the provincial level. Because this is a special case, and we feel that we need to pool our manpower, different PNP units.
So if it's a media person affected, you really make special
investigation task group. And on this special investigation task group, we converge different PNP units at the provincial level. These are headed by the provincial director. The CIDG is joining as part of the team, the crime laboratory, the intelligence group, and the so they converge just to focus on this particular case, just to solve that problem in as far as manpower. That's why we are constantly training. We're embarking into a massive training to train our people, particularly in
Colonel, sorry to interrupt you. We need to take a short break. And meanwhile, you can react online via Facebook at facebook.com/SolarOpposingViews or tweet your comments at opposing_views. Use the hashtag OVMediaKillings. Stay tuned. You're watching Opposing Views. We'll be right back.
Sila yung equalizer, di ba? Kumbaga, parang sila yung catalyst dun sa mga issues. So, madalas ang kabanggaan nila otoridad. So, hindi sila guaranteed na papoprotektahan kapag may nababangga rin silang authority.
Kayo ang mata, kayo nakakita ng mga katiwalian dito sa na nangyayari sa bayan.
No, kasi this past few years, ang daming mga unresolved na mass media killing. So, I think hindi pa siya safe.
Welcome back. You're still watching Opposing Views on the Solar News Channel. We have with us Colonel Henry Libay of the Task Force USIG and Ed Lingao from the Philippine Center for Investigative Journalism. And our debate question for tonight is the government fulfilling its mandate of protecting journalists? Now, Colonel, do you believe that the government is should I say, doing whatever it can? And then I'll follow up a question with you, Ed. No, providing enough resources at least for you guys, because we were talking about it offline, and Ed was mentioning that earlier that basically nangyari, you have the same number of resources, but you're just reassigning certain people from particular tasks and putting them in this task force. Do you think that the government is providing you with sufficient resources to address the media killings?
That's actually the very reason I think why the AO35 was formulated, particularly to pull the coordination and the resources and manpower of different agencies, and particularly on the PNP.
Okay. Now, do you think the government is apathetic to the plights of the press and in protecting press freedom?
You can look at it from several levels.
Maybe because they're being hit all the time.
You can look at it from several levels. For example, the president himself. We have had some issues with the president himself as far as his attitude towards the media is concerned.
What is his attitude?
Well, if you go by his pronouncements and by his criticisms of the media, which is of course which is allowed because everybody's allowed to hit the media if they want. Speaking about the media, he's become very critical of the media And in fact, in just one, for example, I think it's 2011, 2012, in 4 separate public speeches, he hit the media. Now, while that is allowed and understood, and it's allowed of anybody to do that, here you're talking about the highest official of the land, the chief executive, and that would have significant echoes down the local government chain.
Right.
If your chief executive says that the media is abusive and that the media is overstepping its bounds and is too critical, what will your mayor say?
In a way, it gives an impression. It gives an impression of what the position of the central government is. Has to the media, right?
Or even his personal position. Of course, the president, we don't think the president is not involved in any of the media murders. However, his statements carry a lot of weight, and we think that it adds to the problem.
Do you think that adds to the problem, Colonel? Yung attitude ni Presidente na, he castigates the media practitioners and therefore, as Ed mentioned, it trickles down to the mga local government executives.
I don't think so, because if you're going to follow the news, every time that there was a media practitioner who were killed, even the Malacanang always gave us a marching order to solve every cases that we have.
In other words, they would not ignore it and really go all out and give a statement on what action to be made. All right.
A great deal of the murders of media are the suspects are usually people from the local government unit, the local government levels, and a lot of these are from areas which are which you might consider as fiefdoms or little kingdoms, semi-autonomous in a sense from Manila. They're far away from the reach and from the sight of the national government, yet they have the authority that comes with being local government officials. So may kakabit siya na kahit hindi diretsahan, it has an impact, it has an effect.
Now let's go to the processes and the progress in resolving these cases. Now, the cases are there. We all know that. Are you satisfied, Ed, with how this resolving of all of these cases have progressed? And
also, you're looking at several levels. On the investigation part, there's still a lot that has to be done. But we do acknowledge that there has already been a lot done, a lot of improvements in modernizing the investigative capacity of the police. Pero marami pang kailangan gawin. For example, like what we mentioned a while ago, we've succeeded in the channeling or repurposing personnel, but we haven't really beefed up the personnel itself, the numbers. We still have one of the lowest police to civilian ratio in the region. We could still improve on that, and that would have a significant impact on how you're able to
investigate and all that. And then, of course, the judicial portion part. The judicial
also,
part.
a lot of the media murders remain unresolved because they never got beyond the investigation phase. Patay ng victim, patay pa ang kaso. Hindi na umusad from the police investigation
Case in point,
phase.
Ampatuan...
Ampatuan, may movement nga umabot sa korte. A lot of the cases of media murders never even got to the piskal. Never even got to the courts. Kasi, well, siguro, nahihirapan maghanap ng witness, nahihirapan mga ebidensya, or hindi natin maigi yung evidence. So, dun pa lang, going up, next level mo naman is the court. Kung hindi maganda rin ang pagkakakalap ng ebidensya mo, then that will also affect the length of the trial and the result of the trial.
Of course, the period as to how long it's going to be resolved.
So tahi-tahi, kabit-kabit siya lahat.
Now, Colonel, is the growing backlog in filing cases of media killings, and I see a lot of the facts here and the stats, it's bothersome. Do you think the growing backlog in filing cases of media killings is because of police investigators assigned to gather the evidence, to process the witnesses and build cases against both the gunmen and the mastermind? Is the backlog because of the slowness of the investigation?
I don't think so, because there's a lot of factors to be considered there. Now, if you're speaking about training, we have actually trained around 12,000 investigators so far nationwide. Before, when we start, it's only around 25% of them were formally trained, and now we have 80%
80% are fully trained.
fully trained, and they were still conducting a massive
formal
training.
investigation. Specifically for media killings.
That is
think
for
that's
the
total.
for the overall. But there is also specialized courses that we are offering not only to our police non-commissioned officer, but also to officers who will be managing each and every one cases that we have. We're continually improving our forensic capability. Before, you won't heard of that CCTV, digital forensic, computerized composite sketch, ballistic examinations, and so forth and so on. But now this is becoming very familiar every now and then, because in the advent of this new technology that is coming in,
Dati kasi talagang drawing lang yung
we're improving our systems and procedures, our manuals, together with the training in order to enhance our capability and knowledge.
So your position is basically it's not in the hands of the police investigations. That's why there's a backlog.
There's a lot of reason why. Sometimes, of course, you mentioned about witnesses. Sometimes the family are no longer interested to pursue the case. Right. If I remember right, we have 5 cases, for example, of dismissed cases, and if you're going to look at that, the only one of those dismissed cases can be attributed to the insufficiency of evidence.
All right. Now, let's go to the statistics. No? A few suspects are in jail, and there are a few cases in court. I see the stats here, and the conviction rate is quite low. No? So, do you believe that there's impunity in the country, yung talagang walang hustisya?
Clearly there is. Hindi ko naman masasabing walang hustisya, pero very limited yung implementation ng hustisya. Now, if you look at the statistics, yung conviction rates, for example, you're looking at what? Around 10 convictions, but they're all gunmen or yung mga, no mastermind at all. In the end, what you want to go after is the mastermind, because he is the person who ordered the killing. The gunman is the arm. The brains are still floating around.
And the brains
never had a conviction of a mastermind. Or even an arrest. And there's a good case that we always cite, the Marlene Esperat case. Marlene Esperat was a radio broadcaster and columnist in Sultan Kudarat. She was killed in 2004 or 2005. Na-identify ang kanyang mga masterminds dahil the gunmen and the lookouts were convicted, and one of them turned state witness. So na-identify yung masterminds. They turned out to be 2 senior Department of Agriculture officials.
Okay.
But they were able to, and this goes to another part of the problem of impunity, they were able to play around with the law, with the legal system. So they were able to delay everything, and until now, hindi sila ma-aresto. And they're still holding office. They're still in office. They're still getting paid taxpayers' money. But they've been identified as the masterminds by the people convicted.
Colonel, do you agree with Ed here that it's just purely the gunmen na huli, walang mga masterminds na nako-convict or not much even arrested? No, of course. If you're going to focus on this, the one that is highly sensational, that is believed to be work-related, for example, we can mention the Jerry Ortega case, although we have identified already the mastermind, but still they are at large, of course. But so there are cases where the mastermind is identified.
Especially on those cases that we considered as non-work-related, because it's much more easier to solve than the one that is work-related. I'll give an example. For example, we have a case in Aurora. I won't mention it, but I know Ed knows that there is a mastermind that was identified there, who was arrested. It just so happened that the family of the victims executed a resistance, and that is the reason why the case against him was dropped.
That's true. But nahihirapan din kasi yung families ng victims minsan, because they know it'll take a long time for justice to be given to them. But I'll cite another case. In General Santos City, the Dennis Cuesta case, he's a radio broadcaster, was shot several years ago. The alleged mastermind happens to be a police official. I won't mention his name anymore, but he's a police official who's on the wanted list, and he hasn't been found yet for several years. But sometimes you'd come across reports that he's been seen around General Santos City because he belongs to a political family there.
All right.
So may mga ganun.
So may mga ganung instances.
May mga ganun.
Now, on your part, no, Ed, being a media practitioner, and you might have, I don't know if you have statistics for this, but if a media practitioner, for example, feels that his life is threatened, and he reports it to the police, I don't know if you have stats for that, yung parang reported threats, which I guess eventually led to him being killed anyway. Because I would imagine that, if a media practitioner says, "Oh, I'm being threatened, my life is being threatened," and yet he dies, there was probably a lack of protection there. No, we can argue. So, do we have stats for that? Or?
No, unfortunately, we don't. Kasi you're looking at such a varied amount of and a number of people who work in the media.
Yeah.
And a lot of them, some of them complain, some of them don't. A lot of them actually don't bother to complain anymore.
Don't bother because it's part of the job.
But that's part of what we've been trying to instill among fellow reporters is that if you are under threat, you report it.
Report it right away.
You make it public.
Colonel, kayo ba, do you get a lot of media people coming to you and saying, "Oh, my life's being threatened, please protect me"?
Yeah.
And what do you do in those instances?
Yes, actually, we also have those people who really seeking and report to the police.
So you do have media practitioners who come.
Yes,
and what do you do? What do you do specifically?
Of course,
what action, to answer the question of whether the government is really protecting.
Of course, we're providing them security protection, but there are some cases that the media practitioner itself don't want to be escorted by PNP. So what the PNP is doing is regular mobile patrolling the area because the media practitioners sometimes disagree to have escort for them.
Let me also put some context into that.
Yeah.
Like I said kanina, we're not actually really asking for for protection, special protection from the police kasi hindi naman tayo special show pa eh. I mean, we have as much right to life as everybody else, diba? So we're not looking for special protection unless you've really been threatened.
Yeah.
So there are some reporters and some media people who have asked for protection from the police and they've been given. Curiously though, there are some media people who really don't need the protection, but they get protection from the police. So
okay. There are those who don't ask.
Minsan din may abuse din from the end of
so
the media.
that's the opposite spectrum naman.
So kailangan din tingnan na maigay yung who really needs, kasi given scarce resources, kukunti lang yung police mo, tapos ibibigay mo pa sa kung sino-sinong palibasa sikat siya o maingay siya, bibigyan mo siya ng police escort. Hindi rin dapat ganun.
Yeah. Now, okay. Now, I'll go into the context as you mentioned earlier. No? So sometimes, you might have a media killing, and but do you take into consideration if he had enemies? Because there's some media people who don't go out there and really bash, let's say, politicians. They're just ordinary, I guess, hosts or DJs. Yung ba you take into consideration when you investigate? Do you take into consideration what this person was saying on air or what this person was writing?
Yes, precisely. That's actually the manner of approach how we investigate cases. No, gaya ng that was what was mentioned by Ed a while ago. We look into we review the program, all of his write-up, and try to if he's a hard-hitting commentator, particularly discussing hard-hitting issues for, let's say, local politicians or other government officials. We look into this. We review this program, all of his write-up, and
so inaaral niyo yan, you evaluate it.
And gaya ng sinabi ni Ed, if there is no other clear reason why he was killed, we assume it is a work-related cases.
Okay, but if let's say that he wasn't really writing anything derogatory to anyone, and then he got killed, then do you write that off as not a media killing, not media killing, not media related?
Well, actually, gaya ng sinabi ko kanina, the PNP investigate all crimes.
Okay.
Particularly if that is involves a media man, we always create this special investigation task force, regardless of what is the motive is.
Yeah. But I guess it's more finding out the trend, no? Whether there is indeed a trend for people to really just, if someone speaks ill of them, they shoot and kill. No? So I guess we're trying to find out whether the statistics are reliable or not, no? in determining a trend, so to speak. But we need to take a short break, Colonel and Ed. Don't go away. When we come back, the result of our online poll on the issue and the final words of our guests. Stay tuned. You're watching Opposing Views. Welcome back. This is Opposing Views. I'm Rod Nepomuceno, and our guests are Colonel Henry Libay from the Philippine National Police Directorate for Investigation and Detective Management. He also heads the Task Force Usig, and Ed Lingao, journalist from the Philippine Center for Investigative Journalism. And our question for tonight is the government fulfilling its mandate of protecting journalists? Now, we have a question. Will licensing journalists guarantee more protection of media personnel as proposed by Senator Estrada, to license them? Do you think that that will help?
Licensing media practitioners?
Yeah, licensing.
Well,
in the same way that I guess lawyers are licensed
well, I think yeah, because I've been in discussion with a lot of media groups, and they have this so-called
group.
I've been in a discussion and different forum with various media organizations, and even the old professional reporters, they also mentioned this so-called Hao Chao media practitioner, and they always mention about policing their own rank. Just recently, I think NPC is cleansing right now their own rank. Just to make sure that they have this so-called the real media practitioner.
So do you think licensing would help? Licensing the media practitioners?
I think so. That would make them more professional in some way, and at the same time, we could
subject to certain code of ethics and
certain code of ethics, and maybe be able to know who actually are the real media practitioner and the real journalists in this country.
Ed, do you think we should be licensing media practitioners?
Let me put it this way. Kung ang bulag nga kayang kumuha ng lisensya sa LTO, what would stop? What would stop
people to just have a fake license?
If the problem is reporters who do not have the ethical values, or a very well-formed value system which would tell them what is right and what is wrong, if that is the problem, then that should be that should be an internal you have to leave it to the media to police itself. The reason I said this is this. In the end, the fourth estate, the media, is supposed to be independent, completely independent of government. If you have if you have a situation where government starts licensing media, then in the end, after a few years, you will have media just agreeing with the government.
The government can use the licensing.
That is the way it is.
Licensing requirement to in a way prevent you from
which is not to say that there are no problems in media. We acknowledge that there are a lot of problems in media as far as professionalism, ethics is concerned. In the same way that there are a lot of problems, for example, with police, lawyers, army, politicians. But in the same way that you do not condone the killing of politicians because there's corruption in the ranks of politicians.
Same thing with
reporters. You have a problem with the reporter, you complain to his editor, or you complain to the Philippine Press Institute, or you complain to the KBP. You don't just shoot him. Because if you did that, then how many politicians would you have left? Diba?
Okay. But usually, and I've spoken to some people, and some of their concerns really is that because if you have an uncontrolled media, and then parang some of them, I'm not saying all, but some of them are saying, well, he kind of asked for it.
If we would hear that a lot of times.
He asked for it. He was berating someone, and some people just blow off. You're ruining my reputation, which is all I really have. Really, that's the most important thing, my reputation.
But one last, still on this topic, there's also the misconception that the problem is the Hao Shao. Although we hear it a lot of times, and sometimes we laugh about it among ourselves kasi makikita mong lalaki ng mga ID, tapos puro media yung nandito, media dito. Hindi sila yung problema mismo eh. Kasi you will come across some reporters who belong to reputable agencies, who receive regular salaries, who are actually very well known, who have ethical issues, have problems with everything from payola to unprofessionalism. except that you don't notice them as much because they do it more quietly.
Right.
So hindi siya yung dahil mukha siyang hawsyaw, ibig sabihin yan ang problema. Hindi. Actually, I would usually refer back the problem to Manila. Some of the bigger problems in the media belong in Manila.
Right, exactly.
Because of the example that we set.
All right, I'm going to ask you this, and I'm going to ask also Colonel Ed. Do you agree that we should arm journalists to protect themselves?
No. Some reporters can't even write, and now you expect them to shoot.
All right.
I don't know if I should have said that.
Okay.
But that's not their job. In the same way that you don't arm lawyers just because they're lawyers, or you don't arm politicians just because they're politicians. No, you arm. You're not even supposed to arm them. I mean, maybe the question should be: should you allow them looser licensing requirements? That's a different matter altogether. For example, that question came about nung Jerry Ortega murder. Si Mayor Hagedorn said, and if you want, I'm willing to arm the local media. And some reporters liked the idea, but we said no, that's a bad idea.
Yeah, because not only is the pen mightier than the sword, now I have a gun too, right?
Yeah.
So, Colonel, what do you think of that? Arming mga media?
I also don't agree on that.
You also don't agree.
Although applying for a gun license is, of course, would require you to satisfy some of the requirements if you are qualified. But arming them, totally, I also don't agree that what we can do is perhaps to educate them on personal security protection, make them much more hard target, how to protect themselves.
And to be more vigilant.
More vigilant, to be aware of their environment when they get out from their home, when they get out from their office and return to their home.
And do you conduct seminars like that to media practitioners? Or are they even interested? Or?
Yes, actually, we even launched the so-called personal security
information
protection handbook, a small handbook which contains the procedure on how to protect yourself in case of there are prank calls, there are people, you are under surveillance and so forth and so on. And we even conducted seminars to a lot of media groups and even some target shooting also. But for those media men, of course, who
are licensed to
qualified.
Now, okay, I'm going to ask you this, and then I'm going to ask Ed this now as we wind down the show and the discussion. Task Force USIG was established to protect journalists, making sure their cases are being processed. Now, how would you assess it? How would you, being the head secretariat, and I'll ask Ed the same question, how would you assess Task Force USIG so far? Is it successful, or do you think, I don't know if you would like to take the liberty of rating it from 1 to 10, 10 being the best. I don't know if, or just make a general assessment of what you think Task Force has achieved.
The better to assess us is the people who are the very person we were serving, because they're the media groups. But I can now we work under the interagency committee, of course. But what I can say is, if someone was killed, this will be in the newspaper for probably how many days? We're done for 1 week, and after that it will go with to the limelight. It will be out of the limelight.
Out of the limelight.
But
and then
but you will be make sure. But this is what is sure about it.
Yeah.
Although it will be out of the limelight from the newspaper and the daily broadcast of the TV and the newspaper, you will be assured that there is a particular unit who were actively monitoring these cases, from the investigation to the prosecution, all of these trials, conviction, even these cases are dismissed. Someone is reviewing all of these cases. What is the reason why it was dismissed? What are the things can be done to the cases in order to solve it? You can be assured that there is a unit who will put every particularly our own personnel, if they were involved under restricted custody, and make all of this coordination between the court, the prosecutors, and
right.
So because that's how our work actually.
So you give yourself a passing grade? You give Task Force USIG a passing grade, or even a good grade?
Yes, of course.
Yes.
We've been here since 2006.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Ed, your thoughts?
Well, I would rather grade the entirety.
The entirety, not just
USIG, because
Task
USIG is
Force USIG.
actually a very small part of it.
Okay.
And to be fair to them, theirs is not the burden in its entirety. In its entirety, if you ask me, government's ability and willingness to protect press freedom, it's still a failure.
It's still a failure. Okay.
It's still a failure. We have a free press not because of the government, but because the public wants it. Despite despite, you might say, government.
That's right. Despite, okay. Now, do you think in your mind, do you think that the media is successful in policing its own ranks?
That's an interesting question. I would say that we would need to have a lot more work done, and we've been trying to do that.
So you give yourself a failing mark as well?
To be fair to everybody else, I think that if we're not failing, we're
somewhere in the middle. Yeah,
somewhere in the middle, perhaps.
Yeah, barely passing or something.
Kasi, you know, there are a lot of things that we need to do, and we've been trying to do it as well. But we'll need to change a lot of things and a lot of mindsets along the way. As far as media is concerned, you have a lot of media groups that are working on this. NUJP, FFFJ, CMFR, PCIJ. We do training for reporters in the provinces, and a lot of these issues we talk about. Sometimes you'd be amazed at the things you hear.
Yeah, right. Now, Colonel, do you think that the reason for this media killings is also obviously the fault of media itself? You think they have some responsibility to this? I know it's going to be very difficult for them for anyone to concede that, considering that one of them, or let's say several of them, have been killed and murdered. No, but do you think that they bear a certain amount of responsibility to what's happening to them being attacked?
In some sense, yeah, because we monitored some of those cases that were really, I mean, can be considered as work-related because of some other reason, and that is the reason why they were killed. Not because
but unfortunately, you have to balance
but still, this
the freedom of the press, being able to express yourself, and also, I guess, calling trouble your way.
Yes.
So, minsan marinig mo sa probinsya, naghahamunan sa ere. Naghahamunan sa ere.
Yeah.
Parang duelo.
So sometimes
that's alarming.
Yeah, it's alarming.
But it's alarming in the provinces, but it's alarming kasi you also see it here in Manila. And people in the provinces would also copy that. Now, but having said that, that of course aggravates everything.
Right.
Aggravates and enforces the culture of impunity and all that. But having said that,
in your mind, the media person should not be engaging.
Yes. In the end, you have to be responsible about how you handle the news and how you handle opinion.
Exactly.
Pero having said that, still no reason for you to be killed. No matter how terrible you are as a reporter, no matter how bad your writing is, no matter how much you should go back to college or maybe high school and learn the basics of grammar.
Yeah.
In the end, you don't get killed for bad grammar or bad unprofessionalism.
No, okay. The ultimate goal of the show and the discussion, of course, is to inform the public. And so I will ask you, Ed and Colonel, to give your final words in this question. For those who just tuned in, the question is the government doing enough to protect our journalists? So your final words, Colonel.
Yes, on the part of the Philippine National Police, of course, we're doing our best to solve each and every cases of killing, particularly these media practitioners, as we give special focus on each and every cases. We are continually improving our investigative policies, procedures, equipment, and so forth and so on, in order to give justice to the family of the victims.
All right, thank you very much, Colonel. And Ed, your final words, is the government protecting you enough?
Well, we would like to see significant improvements in a lot of aspects, from the legal, logistical, to the political aspects of it. Ang dami pang kailangan gawin. And obviously, it's not working the way it should. We may again be the freest press in Asia, but they're also free to kill us, as it turns out.
Yeah, and that shouldn't be the case.
That shouldn't be the case.
All right, thank you very much. So thank you very much, Ed. Thank you, Colonel. And so thanks to our guests, Colonel Henry Libay and Ed Lingao. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, now let's see the results of our online poll. Our question, is the government fulfilling its mandate of protecting journalists? Those who answered yes, the government is doing enough, 30%. Those who answered no, 70%. And that's our opposing views for tonight. Tune in again next week for another bold and engaging discussion on today's most relevant issues. I'm Rod Nepomuceno. Good night and God bless. media killings since 2010, and police having arrested suspects in only 6 cases and secured convictions in only 2 cases, it looks like that the government has a lot of work to be done in order to convince the people that the safety of its people remains paramount. Welcome to Opposing Views, a hard, straightforward discussion of today's most pressing issues. Journalism has long been a high-risk profession in the Philippines, not only because of the dangerous places media practitioners cover, but because some believe that killing the messenger is the best way to suppress the message. The Philippines has a reputation for having one of the freest media freedom environments in Asia, but this seems to fleet inch by inch with every dead journalist added to the statistics. So tonight we ask, is the government fulfilling its mandate of protecting journalists? Good evening, I'm Rod Depomuceno, and this is Journalism. Good evening, Ed.
Good evening, Attorney.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right, what is your position on this, Ed? Is the government providing enough protection?
Well, the simple answer to that is no. But to put a bit of nuancing, we're not asking for protection, we're just asking for the implementation of the law. We are asking for enforcement, arrests, convictions.
All right. So let's start off. Now, Ed, I'll start off with you. U.S.-based watchdog, Human Rights Watch, described the state of media freedom in the Philippines as precarious and something not safe, not strong, and steady. Do you agree?
Yes. We have the freest, we're one of the most free in terms of press freedom, but unfortunately, we're also the freest in terms of it's free to kill reporters. So that's the paradox of the entire situation. We can say a lot of things, but we can get shot. And
5 days ago, 35-year-old radio broadcaster Richard Najid was shot dead by a still unidentified suspect in Tawi-Tawi. The incident happened a day after the observance of World Press Freedom Day. This was the most recent recorded media killing in the country. He was the 27th journalist in the country killed under the watch of President Benigno Aquino III. Still fresh in our minds was the gloomy day of November 23, 2009, when a mass grave was discovered in Mindanao amid heated political rivalry. 22 out of 58 bodies recovered were journalists. Dubbed as the Ampatuan or Maguindanao Massacre, this is the single deadliest event for journalists in history. For 4 consecutive years, at least 2 foreign media watchdogs noted that the Philippines is the 3rd most deadly country for journalists after war-torn countries of Syria and Iraq. This is ironic to the Philippines' image of upholding democracy and freedom which other countries try to follow. The so-called impunity aggravates the plight of journalists being killed in the line of duty. Courts are slow and justice remains elusive. Even during the visit of U.S. President Obama in the Philippines, a foreign journalist from Fox News asked President Aquino,
Why 26 journalists have been killed since you took office, and I understand that there have only been suspects arrested in 6 of those cases. What are you doing to fix that?
We did set up an interagency committee to look on extralegal killings, enforced disappearances, torture, and other grave violations of right to life, liberty, and security of persons.
but with 27 recorded opposing views. Joining us tonight in our discussion is Colonel Henry Libay from the Philippine National Police Directorate for Investigation and Detective Management. He also heads Task Force USAID. Good evening, Colonel. Colonel Libay.
Good evening, Attorney Rod.
Yeah, can you give us a summary of your position regarding this question? Is the government providing enough protection for our journalists?
Yes, actually, yes. The government is doing everything in order to solve all of these cases of Islam media practitioner that is happening in our country today.
All right. And on the opposing side is Mr. Ed Lingao, veteran journalist and multimedia director of the Philippine Center for Investigative Journalism.